possible that we could have the technology to survive centuries-long space flights out of our solar system, especially if we can get some of that transhumanism, because it would remove the need to bring along things like water and food, and also we wouldn't have to be afraid of the immense amounts of space radiation that destroy humans. Quick question, Stan. How is there not a band called either Space Radiation or the Transhumans? Okay, let's zoom out even further and talk about millions of years. If Homo sapiens hasn't been wiped out by some disaster within the next several million years, our species probably won't be around anyway because we'll have evolved into something else. Like 7 million years is roughly the amount of time since our species split from our common ancestor with chimpanzees. And while we do share 98.4% of our DNA with them, a lot of evolutionary change can happen in a few.
So this is something that has been considered by a lot of people, but I asked the question myself, who's to say that these so-called gray aliens, now maybe they've never been seen, but let's assume for the purpose of this argument that they have been seen, are not us traveling in time? I mean, wouldn't that make sense? Time travel so in the forefront of the conscious of mankind today, we should not assume this is our first time through this moment. In fact, I have a theory that maybe every time you experience deja vu, it's because someone has traveled to or from your time and you remember it again. It somehow it's caught up in the cosmic energy and you relive the event, even though you know you've never been to this place or never seen this person. It's like happening again. So who knows? Maybe that's a possibility. But why not consider gray aliens or things that look like gray aliens as an advanced and adapted form of human beings? If we split off from something as different looking as us, as the chimpanzee or something like it, then why couldn't we look like that in, say, 15 million years, which would be more than enough time to perfect and use time travel, I think, which is going to be nothing but gravity manipulation, and eventually that'll be something that can be manufactured. You know, whoever's in charge of the gravity will affect time. So if you can create gravitational pull, or you can create it in an intense form, you're going to be able to affect time and time travel. And they've shown some evidence of this already with the not just the math equations and the physicist equations, but with actual flights. And we know that time is a tricky thing, especially when you get near a black hole, which is nothing but, forget about the fact that it's a black hole, it's the intense gravity that matters vis-a-vis time. And if we can get that perfected, figure out how to travel through that, we're going to have no problem going back and forth in time and space quickly. So I don't see why we should just not consider the possibility that we already have time travelers from the future, meaning this isn't the first time you've been through this moment. And if this moment ends again because they've left this time, you wouldn't know it. It would just stop. Did you know if they look at matter near the event horizon of a black hole, it just freezes? It doesn't actually go into the black hole. It does go in. You know it does. But if you're looking at it, meaning you're looking at light refracted from it or reflected from it, you just see it still there. It's just stuck. Because it is so intense in the black hole and the gravity actually gobbles up light. Light can't even escape from there. Very interesting what happens to time when you get near intense gravity. All right, let's get back to what he was saying. I hate to interrupt a good speaker, so we'll do this.
Especially true when you consider that the human capacity for genetic engineering may have developed in a lot of scary and or awesome ways, further increasing the pace of change. And when it comes to moving outside of the solar system, a few million years is actually a pretty long time. Like, presuming that humanity never finds a way to move faster than the speed of light, physicists estimate that on the timescale of 5 to 50 million years, we could colonize almost every star system in our galaxy. That shows you the precision of predictive science, by the way. 5 million years to 50 million years. It's only a 45 million year difference. But here's a crazy thing to consider. If we can't move faster than the speed of light, we will never get outside of the Milky Way, because the vast distances between star systems also mean that human populations will be separated by thousands of light years. And when a species is separated into, different physical pockets of the universe, it stops being the same species pretty quickly. I mean, you put turtles on different islands for a few thousand years and you get different species. I don't think that we're going to hold on to our shared humanity across hundreds of thousands of light years. So imagine a distant future where each star system is seeded by an ancestor, and then a few million years later, those cousins look profoundly different from each other. Wait, as different as Americans look from Canadians, or more different? More different, apparently. how can you look more different than I do from a Canadian? Another thing I'd like you to consider is humanity's increasing ability to harness energy. From the firestorm of the Big Bang to the first stars blinking into existence to life's active harvesting of energy to the massive increase of energy used in the Industrial Revolution, more energy means higher complexity, and that's our overarching theme in big history. So life on Earth has gotten pretty good at harnessing the energy that's like within Earth and that comes to Earth from the sun, right? But maybe a time could come when humanity or something else like us in the universe could harness the entire power of a different planet or a chain of several planets or a galaxy. Then we could harness many orders of magnitude more energy than we can now, and we know that is closely associated with rising complexity. But perhaps I've speculated too much. The thing about futurism is that the further you look ahead, the more certain things become again. That's thanks to the beauty of physics. So let's look again at the projected future based on our current knowledge.
So, what will happen in the next billion years? In about a billion years, the sun will have begun to exhaust its fuel and will start to inflate. Its luminosity will increase, and this means plants on Earth over the following years will find it harder and harder to do most forms of photosynthesis and thus sustain complex life on Earth. The beginning of the end. What will happen in the next 3 to 5 billion years? Now the story is starting to get even more tragic. The sun will get larger and larger until it boils the surface of the Earth dry. Once we get to a surface temperature greater than 100 degrees Celsius, we can be pretty sure that that's it for life on Earth. So if anyone human or human-like is still around, we'll have to leave our childhood home and move into a dorm room somewhere else in the galaxy. We won't even be able to come back home for our moms to do our laundry. How about in the next 200 billion years? As dark energy continues to accelerate the expansion of the universe past the speed of light, we will no longer get to see light from other galaxies. If we were to lose the knowledge of the Big Bang cosmology that we were taught at the beginning of this series, our galaxy would be all we'd see or be aware of. We'd revert to the idea that the universe had no start date, is static, and eternal. The Milky Way would be our entire universe. That's why a number of scientists refer to the current age where we can see evidence for the Big Bang and see other galaxies as the golden age of astronomy. But, a golden age that lasts hundreds of billions of years is not so bad. What will happen in the next 100 trillion years? The last tiny, slow-burning star will have flickered out, and new ones will have ceased to form. No new heavy elements will form. All that will be left is the residue of heavy elements from long-since dead stars, a cosmic graveyard where the remains of dead stars and planets wander in the darkness. But let's not stop there. What about in the next trillion years? More accurately, 10 to the 40 years. That's a 1 with 40 zeros after it. This is an even more incomprehensible stretch of time than 100 trillion years, and even more incomprehensible things will happen. The most likely scenario is this. Matter will grow feeble and decay into energy. And remember, matter is, loosely speaking, just a more congealed form of energy. Eventually, the universe will be an empty orb of weak cosmic radiation with the energy spread out like too little butter spread over too much bread. This, as far as we can tell, is the end of complexity as we know it. And then, in the next trillion years, or 10 to the 100, even black holes will evaporate and the universe's grand narrative will have more or less come to an end. After all those transformations into a great amount of variety and networks of intricate complexity, all will pass away. All that will remain is a universe that is very old and very tired. It is the specter of heat death.
Okay, so for me, one of the most comforting thoughts about all existence comes from science. The idea from the first law of thermodynamics that matter and energy are neither created nor destroyed. The building blocks that make up our bodies have been around since the beginning of the universe. We have merely changed form, and after we die, our bodies will return to that inanimate cosmos from which they sprang. And in that sense, all life is connected, and also all life is kind of eternal. Now, of course, there's still the fear of losing your particular consciousness, depending on your worldview. Like, I will cease to be John Green. And from my perspective, that's not ideal, but we're programmed to have that fear. If we weren't afraid of ceasing to exist, we wouldn't be a very good species. We would have gone extinct ages ago, and none of us ever would have gotten to be. I don't think that's either good or bad. It keeps our species going, and the universe looks on free from any mandate or obligations or programming, completely free. And what a lot of us overlook is that we are not just observers of the universe. We are the universe. We don't exist outside of the universe. We are indivisible from it. We are made of the same stuff. And in all of our transformations over billions of years, from star stuff to single cells to students to one degree or another, at every stage we've shared in that freedom of transformation to flow endlessly from one form to another. And maybe we won't survive as individuals, maybe we won't survive as a species, but we will continue into the deep future. We are a tiny part of the universe, but we are part of it. And from so simple a beginning in ways most beautiful and most wonderful, we, the universe, have been and are being evolved. That ability, in fact, necessity to change is your birthright, acquired at your original birth 13.8 billion years ago, and it can never be taken away. It can never be destroyed. Thanks for watching Crash Course Big History, and as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Bitch, I'm gonna kick your ass. Yeah, well, that's a lot to take in. I'm sure some of you guys. The show I shared down below, Rick, if you look in the chat, this guy is really good at condensing things. It's basically crash courses on everything, and I shared it in the, let's see. Yeah, look at that YouTube channel, about 7 or 8 comments down below where we are now. More like 10 or 12. And you'll see YouTube channel, UCX, whatever. That's this guy is really good at condensing things, and he's not perfectly right about everything. I mean, who is? But I think as far as getting condensed versions of things that you need more understanding in, I think he's a good source. And for one thing, I think we need to, one thing we fail to do as humans, and I think it's part of our nature, is to understand the limitations of science as it is today. And you could say that on any given day, 1 billion years from now, 5,000 years ago, science is limited. Now, for us to think that necessarily the universe is 13.8 billion years old, that comes from some mathematical and scientific solid information, but what we don't know is what's hurting us. What we don't know is if the universe is on a gradual expansion and contraction program, if you will. And what we don't know is how many senses we don't have. All we know is we have 5 senses. What if we've got 100 and they're just slowly developing one by one, just like they did over our past? So we're going to discover all kinds of new things, and I firmly believe that if we can survive long enough and not kill ourselves, we're going to find a way to exist forever. At least some branches that branch out and travel. And that means that if the universe is going to, if it really is correct, which I seriously doubt we're going to believe that in a few hundred years, but let's just say what they're saying today is correct. The universe is going to fade out and become nothing. I think we'll figure out a way to build our own universe. And it could be something as small as a few solar systems of our own. But, you know, that's going to require such a depth of understanding that we do not have today, no matter what models we use, that I can't even begin to articulate to you what it might look like. But could someone articulate to you in the year 1200? Let's go back. I'm writing a book right now about William Wallace. Let's go back to 1297, which was the Battle of Stirling. Go up there before the English showed up. Grab yourself a Scotsman, smartest one in the group, and say, listen, I got some news for you. You see that ball up in the sky? We're going to be landing on that right about 1969. And, yeah, we're going to do that. And they're going to say, well, what kind of birds are you going to tie ropes to get up there? That's what they're going to be thinking. Did you use a catapult? How did you build a catapult that big? That's what they're going to be thinking. So you can't, and that's just 800 years ago, so you can't really imagine what we need to imagine to understand what we're going to discover in the future. And Stabby says, example, there is a sense of acceleration. We know we have far more than 5 senses. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see a source on that, Stabby. I mean, as far as you may be defining sensations we have as senses, and maybe that's a word thing we're disagreeing on. The sense of acceleration actually comes from the inner ear, so it's really coming from hearing, isn't it? I don't know. You'll have to explain that one to me. But the same sensation as falling, which is acceleration in a downward manner, or rising. But we're going to keep developing senses, if not natural senses, then artificial. We're there. We can start putting chips into brains. It's coming. It's there on the baby step scale. It's going to grow at a magnificent rate, and we're going to have senses we can't even yet imagine. Can't even imagine them yet. And I tack